How do you create pawn leverage? Have you ever wondered how to turn your pawns into powerful tools on the chessboard? Creating pawn leverage is all about using your pawns to challenge your opponent's structure and gain an edge. Let's break it down step by step. First, you need to identify weaknesses in your opponent's pawn structure. Look for backward, isolated, or doubled pawns. These are prime targets. If your opponent has a pawn chain, think about how you can disrupt it. Recognizing your own pawn majorities is also key. These can support your pawn breaks. Next, prepare your pieces. Position your knights, bishops, and rooks to support your pawn moves. Control the key squares around the pawn you plan to push. This will help ensure that your pawn lever is successful. Be cautious about pushing pawns too early, as this can weaken your own position. Now let's execute the pawn lever. When you push a pawn to challenge your opponent's pawn chain, you can create open lines. For example, if your pawn is on d4 and your opponent has a pawn on e5, pushing d4 to d5 can force exchanges. This opens up files for your rooks or diagonals for your bishops. Sometimes, this move can even create a passed pawn or weaken your opponent's king safety. After executing the pawn lever, it's time to follow up with your pieces. Use the newly opened lines to improve your piece placement. Target any weaknesses that have appeared in your opponent's position. Keep the pressure on to capitalize on the changes in structure. In the middle game, pawn levers can help you find plans when the position feels locked. By pushing a pawn lever, you can create dynamic tension and provoke weaknesses in your opponent's camp. In the endgame, having a pawn majority on one side can be leveraged to create a passed pawn through favorable exchanges. It's also important to think ahead. Anticipate your opponent's potential pawn breaks. Prepare to counter or prevent them by improving your piece placement or reinforcing critical pawns. Creating pawn leverage is about strategically using your pawns to challenge and alter your opponent's structure. With careful assessment, preparation, and execution, you can gain significant advantages in both the middle game and endgame. Understanding how to create and utilize pawn leverage is a key part of advanced chess strategy.